Cornwall, roots and influences, number one.
Roots and influences, goodness me. Well, first of all, pleasure and a privilege to be here with you all. It's lovely to be in the company of kindred spirits, all on the same mission to impact and to help. And I love our sort of paths keep crossing over the years. Whether it was Martin at the British Library for the Radiophonic Workshop gig.
That's right.
Into that picture, that was I like your jacket in that one.
Yeah, it's good. Go ahead. Yeah.
And Tim and Cherub, we did the very first Future Sound session way back. Was it 2018 or 2019? I forget which one it was.
Stuff by 18, probably.
Yeah. And look where we are now. Amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
Quickly to my background. So born in London, grew up in Cornwall, and fell in love with music and sound, and particularly spatial sound at probably age 6 or 7. My dad sat me in the stereo sweet spot. He had a really nice ton-iron quad system and had electrostatic speakers, which for those that don't understand, they look like weird old school kind of gold radiators, but they have a beautiful high fidelity sound.
Yeah.
Lynn Sondek. So he put pictures at an exhibition, and then Snowflakes Are Dancing by Isao Tomita.
Yes, that was one of my first albums.
Wow, there you go.
And which is an exhibition, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, is it? Or the original orchestral?
Well, that as well. I mean, my growing up diet was classical music, and then it was sort of Radio 1 and anything we could kind of get hold of in the nighttime. And then my dad's record collection, and that moment of sort of hearing spatialized sound, Moog and Roland synthesizers for the first time blew my mind. Yeah. And obviously, as the second experience was Star Wars. So give Ben Burt and then Vangelis, Cosmos TV series soundtrack, Jean-Michel Jarre, Kraftwerk, your stuff, Early Human League, Depeche Mode, OMD. We're into synth pop, we're into electro, and then I'm breakdancing, then I'm surfing and skating, and then I meet the Aphex Twin in a club in Cornwall, and he's playing tapes, C90 tapes of his own music. I go up there and go, wow, what's that? He goes, well, I made it. He invites me to his studio, shows me how to make music through sampling, synthesis. He had an SH-101 Roland with the lid off, and he basically tweaked with the potentiometer of the frequency range. So he could go ultrasonic and infrasonic with an SH-101 like no one else could, obviously, because, child prodigy age of 18, he didn't want Roland to tell him what the frequency range was. No. We're going to go up and down beyond that. So we've got all these lovely little anecdotes of bats flying into the windows, dogs screaming, dolphins clicking along nicely. And we used to sit ourselves between his suspended speakers. I kid you not. He had his speakers hanging from the ceiling. Like, which 18-year-olds do you know that know how to sort of isolate sound? So, and we're kind of pumping like, the frequency potentiometers down into the sort of 1, 2, 3 hertz range. Speaker cones are doing this. We were mucking around with binaural beats at the age of 18, and we didn't even know what we were doing.
Yeah, amazing. That's all we've got time for.
I'm not set.
That was great. But yeah, anyway, it says on here you're a big sci-fi fan, and we have a lot in common, really. I mean, you're a lot younger than me. How old are you?
I'm 759.
In months.
I mean, that figures because you've lived about 5 different lifetimes already. Ray Pioneer, Sleep Scientist, Sound Explorer, Sonic Architect. It just goes on and on. So it would not surprise me. In fact, the only explanation for it is that you are 700 years old.
Fuck you, hats.
Like that hat. That's a good one. No, I'm just asking because your age kind of really, people's taste changes massively within quite a short range of ages. I've learned through doing all the podcasts and everything. Okay. So how the fuck are you age-wise?
My actual Earth solar cycle was 54 last Monday. So I shared the same birth date and day as the Aphex Twin, which is the other weird coincidence. So yeah, Aphex Day is also my birthday.
Wow. And you built a Maplin drum syndrome kit.
Oh yeah. So I mean, you got to rewind now. I've seen you on TV shows, right? And I'm kind of hearing and seeing sounds of OMD and Cabaret Voltaire and Depeche Mode, and the back of the sleeves that I had in my dad's record collection. I've got all of these gadgets. So I go down to the guitar shop and then really annoy the hell out of the poor servers in there. People that are like, "Do you want to buy?" No. It's the Korg Poly 800 I want to play on. Thank you very much.
Right.
What can I afford on pocket money? Well, saved up and then got a Syndrome kit from Maplin. Good old
There
Map.
you go. You know, Ian Marsh. Yeah, Ian Marsh's first synthesizer when all I could afford was a dual stylus stylophone. He built a Maplin kit synthesizer. The only sounds we couldn't get out of it, we couldn't play any tunes or anything. Was like motorbike noises, but he was fucking good at that.
Good enough for me, though.
We thought he was Eno, because the important thing was he had a joystick, right? So he could do all that stuff. So yeah, you're a bit of a circuit bender then.
Well, one would like to think that there's a bit of that. I mean, Richard's Aphex basically opened my mind to the possibility that anything you can hear, and perhaps not even hear, feel, could be sound, could be music. So using a tape recorder, going to his garage and beating the hell out of things. And my brother converted my Sony Walkman to a Varispeed, and then a very basic turntable with Varispeed. So we're able to kind of mix vinyl with tape back in the 90s. So it was always about tinkering and seeing what we could do with very little resource. The Casio, bless it, SK1 obviously had a VL tone. Who didn't have a VL tone?
Yeah,
SK1.
mine, actually.
Yeah. And da da da, amazing sounds. And that. So and then after Paul Hardcastle, that's it. I'm addicted. I want to have an Emu, or even a Fairlight. That's not going to happen anytime soon, is it?
We had a Fairlight. They were well overrated, I thought. Anyway, but they were completely unique at the time, which is why they did so well. So, crikey, we have so many similar influences. Even though you're significantly younger than me, it's really interesting. You seem to be an old head on a young. You seem to be from an slightly earlier generation, more like my generation, actually.
That's like good parenting, I guess, that introduced you to that kind of era of music.
Yeah, and in terms of, so you like messing around with it's kind of like extended toys, isn't it? Really, for us all. Excuse me. And but when did you start taking buying synths seriously? When you could afford it, I presume.
Yeah, so it was record collecting first, and then, well, my mate's got some Technics turntables. I'm going to learn how to DJ, and then we went and started putting on our own events, and you're starting to make a little bit of cash on the side from doing events, and then there's a point where you realize, oh, this is pretty interesting, and meeting Aphex, made my first record with him, went to Taunton and Exeter. Met Mighty Force Records. They released the first Aphex record, and the rest is history on his side of things. Meanwhile, I meet Mark Pritchard, who's based in Yeovil, and he's working with the likes of PJ Harvey's engineer and making techno in the studio facing a field of cows and sheep. So we hit it off because obviously I've played him the Aphex Twin tapes that are now stuff of legend. He's got a few synths quite similar. We both Casio FZ synths, Richard and Mark. So first training was that before Akai. So yeah, we had this idea of setting up a record label, Evolution, but inspired by Carl Cray from Detroit. And we started releasing records. We used this sort of trick, which was to shrink wrap them and make them look like they were US imports. You don't know we were from the West Country, you see. So we were tricking people, and that was through Great Asset Distribution. They were cheeky fellows doing all kinds of fun things to put markup on their vinyl. But I have fond memories of going to record cuts, making music with Mark. We had this concept, Global Communication, which was emotions and sound, and the album 7614 is definitely one of those sort of landmark ambient electronic albums, I think. No time.
What year was that?
This is 1994,
right.
And the track durations became the titles, and we invited people to share what they felt about it. Now, this is poignant because at that point, everyone was making techno and rave and jungle, that kind of era. but I wanted to make music that was more about reconnecting with your emotionality, with the senses. And this album seemed to touch people in a way that many, couldn't even have predicted. So we had feedback from like Soldiers on Maneuvers saying the cassette helped them get through. It was being used for therapy, like actual counseling therapy. It was being used to give birth. And I kid you not, I've met kids that were conceived to that album. So
There you go.
it's the ultimate shag album. So it's been really interesting, the sort of whole trajectory of this sort of mythical album with no names. And at that point, it sort of occurred to me that music had this additional potency, this power to be therapeutic, to help people. So let's press pause on that and then sort of accelerate through me in massive imposter syndrome, DJing to the sort of crazy kind of world of, what, you're going to pay me to play music? Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and staying in some really great hotels, although not sleeping in them. You get the point.
Yeah.
I mean, at
Or never getting to them, actually.
right, yeah, going to the next gig after that one. And there's this whole story of gigging and touring where I think I did LA, Melbourne, Sydney, up to Tokyo, across to Dubai, Paris, London, back to New York. And then it's any wonder why I burnt out and decided, right, I'm done with touring life now.
Yeah.
So
A lot of people burnt out on drugs, didn't they?
Yes.
Across that period. A lot of people did. And I often think that it's like, kind of Vietnam War veterans. Some of them got PTSD. Some of them can't cope with reality anymore.
Tinnitus.
Right?
Tinnitus as well is a reaction to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I know William Orbit pretty well, and very, very talented guy, incredibly lovely guy, but he did himself mischief, as we say in Sheffield, did himself a mischief, and with all that stuff. So anyway, getting back to the back to you, so healing. When do you? So this was your first experience of thinking about sound as a healing thing.
Yeah, that was seemingly the turning point, wasn't it then? The burnout from being on the road, which then led you to draw out solutions in your own life,
Right.
which then I would imagine rippled out into what we know now, you being able to calm millions of people's nervous system through the incredible sleep sound work that you've done.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it came down to sleep. And ironically, there's always this joke, oh, you're the underslept sleep coach, aren't you? I'm trying to make music to help you sleep. Now, have you tried staying awake making sleep music? It's the most difficult thing in the world to do. I mean, literally, because you're trying to downregulate the nervous system to get you into sort of theta delta wave state. I challenge anyone to make sleep music and stay awake.
I've done with the Mesmering album, and
Yeah.
also I was commissioned to make some sleep music with a particular company, and it was exactly that. It's like I've got to work on it for like an hour and a half at a time before you start dropping off.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, quadrat demonstrandum. I mean, you need that. But yeah, it was this moment of realization that I had to hack my own sleep properly, understand sleep architecture, sleep hygiene, sleep best practices for me, for my family, for my friends, and the broader, let's say, touring DJ artist community that are all suffering massively. I'm still in some interesting groups that really sort of help one another with this sort of let's say mental health triage. Retrained as a sleep science coach, did the mental health first aid certification to really understand that basic level of mental health. And believe me, that's the one course that I would recommend anyone that is a practitioner that hasn't done it. Go and do that course, because you learn more about how to meet people where they are than anything else.
What's the name of the course again?
So it's mental health first aid. So you know that there's supposed to be one first aid caregiver per 10 people in the workplace. This is a kind of thing. So there should really be one mental health first aid caregiver per 10 people. So what I've noticed in this sort of world we're in right now, where people are kind of prescribing solutions, therapies, we should really be more concerned about the mental health of people that are coming to these events and to understand how to manage that. Because if we don't know where you are, some of these breathwork practices are so potent. It's like cathartic channeling. Stuff comes up really quickly. It's very
Sorry. Just to stop, rewind a bit. Can you explain for those who don't know? And this is like a popular science program, so I'm trying to explain the lexicography of what's going on. So explain what breath work is.
So breathwork is something that we all do if we're alive, hopefully. We've forgotten how to do it properly since we were kids. So we diaphragmatically breathe through our bellies. You shall see kids breathing, belly breathing. We used to do that really well until we sat down on chairs and then basically started tensing our stomachs, and we forgot how to breathe properly. So we tend to be mouth breathers, not nasal breathers. We've forgotten the art of breathing as a tool for mental health and physical health and emotional health. So there are a lot of people now that are revisiting the ancient science, if you like, of pranayama and breath work through this new sort of scientific lens. James Nestor's a good one. But yeah, I mean, Cherub, Tim, you will know very well that our paths cross with the likes of the Breath Guy, Breath Pod, Breath Space. I mean, there's Jamie, there's Stu, there's so many individuals out there that are leveraging this power of breath combined with sound therapies such as what you guys do. And it's a really potent combination. If you get that right, it's amazing. One of my favorites was actually using the Ministry of Sound system. So imagine people lying on the floor in the Ministry of Sound. You've got all those subsonics going through the floor. So I did the soundscapes, and Richie, formerly Bostock, the breath guy, would do the sessions where you're doing breath holds and releases, and then these sort of up and down kind of pumping breath work patterns to increase the sort of oxygenation. I'm not really describing it very well. You need to go and experience it yourself, but there's connected breath. There's all kinds of holotropic breath practices that can actually get into quite high altered states. And I will testify that Stu Sandyman has taken me places that are the equivalent of, let's say, ceremonies that you had to go to the Amazon to experience.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting strategy to combine music plus breathing to get into these altered states.
And do you have, I mean, I'm looking here at your collaborations with commercial sound therapeutics, and there are various apps that are available, or there's one in particular called Calm app.
Yeah.
You're involved with that. You've done stuff for that, yeah?
Yeah. So Headspace and Calm, I would say, are probably the leaders in this space. Calm is the first unicorn, and they hit $1 billion valuation. So they are literally supplying sleep stories, mindfulness meditation, all kinds of different voice-led coached practices to help you through life, which is amazing how they're doing that with this sort of digital therapeutic. And I've helped them with creating sound for sleep and for anxiety, and designing the world's most calming noise. And that was a brilliant project. So working with an academic team to unpack white noise, colored noise, and all the other flavors of noise. So
what did you find out?
Well, interestingly, you probably don't want to be exposing yourself to too much synthesized white noise. That can really mess with your brain because it's all frequencies at once. But natural sound, so water,
yeah,
in air, and that kind of feeds into the Bernie Krause conversation, which is soundscape ecology. So we break down the soundscapes into layers. So geophony is earth created sound. So it's wind, rain, elemental sound. Biophony is creature sound, so non-human creature sound. And then anthropophony is human-made sound, which can either be intentional or unintentional. And if it's intentional, it's music, which is lovely. If it's unintentional, it's noise pollution. And we could go down that rabbit hole with Noise Abatement Society, couldn't we?
Yes.
So the golden kind of like sweet spot of this colored noise is a little bit of pink noise, which has definitely been shown to support various states of deep rest. A little bit of Brownian, not brown, but Brownian noise. And then a little bit of...
Sorry, whoa, rewind. What Brownian noise when it's at home?
Okay, so you know everyone talks about white noise machines and it's like a noise. if you're on an aircraft, that sound is a kind of Brownian EQ curve. So it's not very high frequency. You get that lovely kind of rumble in the background. Think of a walkie-talkie living in because of Brownian motion, which is a kind of physics principle.
I know Brownian motion, but how does that sound relate to Brownian motion?
It's how you look at the frequency spectrum and what frequencies are basically working at a particular point in terms of their amplitude, their volume. So you can basically say that white noise is everything like that, brown is that, and then you have things like blue, purple, pink, red. It's
Right.
multicolor of noise out there.
Right.
So we wove together pink, natural white sound, and what we call green noise, which is this nature sound, to create and test the best combination of that sound to help you relax.
Beautiful. Coloured noise. How did I not know about coloured noise? Colour is my life. I'm so excited to dig more into this. So looking more at what you've done in terms of sound and ecology, you've recorded bees, rivers, endangered species. So this has come up quite a few times on the podcast so far, where we're learning that those that are doing the research on recording natural sounds and then bringing those to the populace, it's the best way to reconnect back to the natural rhythms of the world, of nature. So do you think that that could basically be the answer to helping with the mental health crisis, just getting people more retuned back to the natural rhythms in nature?
Oh, you got it right there. I mean, I think probably where you live, and if one's fortunate to access to green space or blue space, or me, I've got some water outside and some green stuff around. Nature sound intrinsically resets our nervous system. If we can hear it. Now, urban life is so noisy, we can't even hear it. It's obscured completely. Now, if you live in the town, I mean, when was the last time you heard an insect? I haven't heard insects for a long time, perhaps since lockdown, which is very concerning. Hence, we need to save the bees. Hence why I went to see lavender fields and the million bee beehive situation going on there.
Just to interject while you take a breath there, because I think you'll like this. My beautiful fiance, who's a tree surgeon, he spends all his life outdoors. The woods are his office, and he misses the sound of crickets. So he's grown out patches in our garden of long grass, so that now we have crickets all day, every day. And he's made me a little office outside underneath a marquee so I can work on my laptop outside. And he's grown the long grass all the way around it. So I just have crickets all day in my ears. And it's this spatial sound, because sometimes they sound far, and sometimes they're really up close. And it has to be doing something beneficial to my brain, because I feel so much calmer. And I'm like 20 meters away from the Wi-Fi router as well, which is obviously beneficial. And I work outside all day. It's really changed the shape of my brain, moving from London and having that access to nature all day.
I would argue that I mean, we can oversimplify it by talking about the countryside and the city, right? This is like, it's almost a trope, right? But I mean, where I'm living, I've just moved to Little Venice. It's very quiet on this little notwithstanding the fucking building noise which goes on all the time.
Oh, it's relentless.
But when they stop for lunch, it's completely silent apart from the occasional plane going overhead. There are no cars, nothing. And I can just feel within, like, I've been here, 5 weeks now? I just feel like a totally different person. It's really bizarre. I was in Marylebone before, and it was like constant. Well, it's one of the busiest streets in London, Baker Street, and Marylebone Road. And I know it sounds like a truism, but Jesus Christ, it makes a difference. That's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily about being in the city or the countryside. It's just you can have little pockets of well-considered private sound spaces, If you got a garden, you're very lucky. I don't have a garden, by the way, but yeah.
I think it's just being aware that we block out urban sound, this horrible cacophony of noise pollution. We block it out, but it's triggering our nervous systems all the time. So to be aware of that, and then maybe to self-medicate with some lovely immersive nature sound, to me is one way out. That's why these apps are so useful, because pop these on, you're immersed in this lovely little sound world, and you can make life a little bit easier. I also walk around with with attenuators, these custom earplugs, just to turn life down, and that helps my nervous system as a highly sensitive person, HSP, I find London to be incredibly overwhelming on my nervous system. So we need to have solutions. And I think sound as a tool to help recalibrate your nervous system is a no-brainer. That's what
We should have no brain left. So the taxonomy of sonic therapeutics, very fancy, isn't it?
Wow.
Get
into that.
You want to run us through those?
Yeah, so I've always been quite interested in, obviously, there's pharmacological solutions and interventions that are, let's say, chemically based. But is there an analog with sound? So we have sedatives and hypnotics for sleep. So sonic hypnotics, that's what I make for Calm, helping millions of people sleep every night, leveraging the power of neuroscience and psychoacoustics to create an effect parallel or similar to that of a pharmacological solution. With anxiolytics, a sonic anxiolytic is something that reduces your anxiety, and most people are anxious a few times a day for various reasons. Then we've got sonic analgesics, which are sounds to help reduce the perception of pain. And we've got sonic nootropics for cognitive performance. So I've created work for Platoon, which is Apple Music's label division. And one's called spatial sleep music, in other words, a sonic hypnotic. And one was spatial focus music. And for that, I worked with a neuroscientist in Lisbon, put on a Muse headband that's reading my brainwaves. He showed me how to get into focus flow state. So that comes between sort of alpha and beta state, that kind of focused attention. You're still not sleepy, but you're still focused. We locked into a particular tempo. And then we literally were able to take my brainwaves in a focused state and then turn them into music, which then became the album. So spatial focus music is music created literally from the frequency of my brain in focus state, converted into music. So I've sonified that data.
Yeah. I did.
Can that put people into flow state by listening to it, or does it help them sleep?
Well, spatial sleep is for sleep. Spatial focus is for focusing. So if you tell me.
Well, that's mind-blowing because everybody wants to be in flow state.
Yeah, exactly.
We did some of this stuff on the Future Sound Tour where it was we had brainwave analysis live driving, a sampler basically, and we designed the sounds. Obviously, they were going to be played, but in 3D. But then it becomes a biofeedback loop. So it kind of it's like a resonant amplification of certain brainwave, ranges. So you can very, very quickly, in fact, we did it live on stage with some people that had never had any connection to anything like this, let alone worn the IBVA headset. They very quickly understood. By looking at a visual, you could see the peaks and troughs of the different waves, but also just by listening to this immersive activity that was going on, they could very quickly learn to control their own therapy live, if you know what I mean. So it's a bit like that lucid dreaming thing we were talking about the other day, where you can kind of entrain yourself to participate in your dreams. It's all very fucking crystal.
It's awesome. Designer dreams are so fun. So I've been messing around with those as well. I say messing around because I'm not ready to kind of unleash them yet. But think Total Recall plus soundscaping, and you're kind of close.
Right.
But it is a thing, and there's MIT have a lab all about this sort of dream induction and utilizing the power of dream states actually to problem solve and to be more creative. You can prime yourself, and there's also a whole kind of Egyptian let's say mythology, but I wouldn't say mythology, around dream states and how to kind of induce dreams and then leverage them for a purpose. And I think, given what we've just talked about, the kind of sounds that might help get you to sleep, what happens if we're exposed to other specific cue sounds, like in a soundtrack at specific points, when you've kind of got your biofeedback going on? So we know sleep cycles are about 90 minutes. hitting the REM point, the dream state, and then some interesting little sounds, man.
Well, I think
I have to try that.
I think Hans Zimmer understands a lot of this stuff. I think that's his secret black ops he uses in the background all the time. And but also, so let's talk about, I mean, we've talked about this separately because we have very similar interests. Cymatics and sacred geometry and all that stuff.
And all that stuff.
And
Doors open.
Temple tech, as I call it. So it was literally an entire 4-hour conversation because I'm so obsessed with this. So it started with going to the to Egypt, to Giza, and then some friends had booked the King's Chamber for an hour, and we kind of sort of gate crashed it a bit. And obviously, I'm curious about getting in there. This is an interesting reverb. What's going on here?
right.
Oh. And I started doing some resonant toning inside we'll call it a sarcophagus. Definitely not a sarcophagus. This is a piece of technology. We'll go on to that in a while. I'm and effortless, just a kind of like that. The whole thing builds standing waves.
Wow.
We started then recording this specific frequency, the resonant frequency within the King's Chamber. I went back again the year after just to confirm it, and then started deep researching this. Of course, Paul Horn was there years before the New Age era, and he'd already been chanting and toning in the King's Chamber amongst other individuals. So getting that on a spectrogram, which is visualizing the frequencies, I found 117 hertz. And that's really interesting. That's a very, very specific frequency. Started digging deeper. Are you ready? El Castillo, Chichen Itza, Kukulkan, the Mayan pyramid. And we're talking about 4,000 years difference, theoretically, in terms of when they're built. The same resonant frequency, 117 hertz. You cannot tell me that there was no intentionality with the very specific architectural and acoustic design of these temples. Cambodia has the same structures as well. So there's these really interesting correlations between pyramid structures built on really perfect pi, phi, Fibonacci, millimeter based. I'm saying millimeter pre, what are we talking about here? Pre-metric millimeter. It was already a useful tool to kind of measure things, but how? When it didn't exist here, pre-Pythagorean. They all
About pre-Pythagorean.
I see the beliefs.
And if we're kind of looking at the correlation between the helix of a DNA to a spiral galaxy, to a sunflower, to a pine cone, to all of these different naturally occurring patterns that can be explained with this beautiful golden ratio, then you start looking at sound, and then you start looking at cymatics. Now, there's a great guy on Instagram that we'll put in the notes that people should go and check out, because he is obsessed with explaining all this stuff. And he overlaid a cymatic pattern over the top of the El Castillo Mayan pyramid, identical. And it literally utilizes maths and harmonic overtones. You know, when you clap in front of it, it makes this sound. He recreates this on a synth using harmonics, and he proves that it's essentially a 3-dimensional cymatic expression. Mind blown.
Who is it?
He's called Bass Forge, something like that. I'll send the link in the, and you can no, but I'm obsessed with this guy. Between him and Robert Edward Grant, I'm like, come on, explain this stuff to me somehow. And the fact that all of these different spaces, I was looking at the Cambodian and Angkor Wat, and also Badoro in Indonesia. You zoom out and you look at those from above, they also look like mandalas. So if mandalas, cymatics are all, sacred geometry is all basically utilizing a way to visualize sound, resonance, and frequency I think we're onto something here, right? We all know this. If you get a Tibetan bowl and you do this with water inside, you can see all kinds of interesting shapes. Different frequencies resonate. The Chladni plates with salt on, and you can start to express and visualize different frequencies. And if you look at a rose window in a church, ta-da, same as a cymatic pattern for a specific frequency. So the clues are all around us. We were already using this a long time ago. But for
Now, I would argue, having had some experience of this myself from a different direction, that I think sound was not only critical for survival in Neolithic cultures, ancient cultures, but I think it was central to their experiences. It was much more important than it is now, or acknowledged to be more important. And not just for rituals, but for necessary survival techniques, and just for making sense of the world around them.
Yeah, for
So-
medicine, for connection to the community, connection to holier powers, for architecture.
We've forgotten a lot of this stuff over millennia. And it's our job on this podcast to bring it forward into the public view, and they can make their own mind up. I know what I think, and I'm a pragmatist and a scientist. I take a scientific approach to just about everything. But just because we don't understand how complex the science is behind something doesn't mean it's not real.
And that's a really interesting conversation, because it kind of leads into where we are now in the world of sound and therapeutics and sound healing, and let's say trying to explain things that we don't yet have the ability to measure, yet they are anecdotally and observably effects, whether it's placebo, as we talked about the other day, or not. This I find the most fascinating of all, is that we're saying 528 hertz is a love vibration. It can heal DNA. Okay, well, that's an interesting hypothesis, but let's just unpack hertz for a minute and solfeggio frequencies. Hertz wasn't even a term until 1935 to 1960. Oops, we can't say that a tuning fork from the 18th and 19th century was tuned to a specific frequency, because we didn't have the term hertz. So we've now leveraged like myth around specific frequencies and giving them a number and saying, well, this, Gregorian chanting is based on this system. Yeah, all very well, but it wasn't never measured. We can actually say that certain tuning forks that didn't actually have a number on them vary between 417 up to sort of 450 hertz. But there's this lovely kind of correlations between maths and explaining the universe and 432 hertz. I love the idea that 432 hertz could actually be a magical frequency tuning system. And from my experience and playing certain instruments in that key, it feels better to me, but we can't explain it. That's the thing. That's the challenge that we have. I mean, I'm curious to hear, Tim and Cherub, your experience of this, because obviously it's very much your world.
I find it fascinating. Oh, sorry, Tim, you go.
Well, I think the first thing you used the word feel, and the feeling is exactly it. It is, it's a subjective thing which we feel individually. It's fascinating what you said in terms of the frequency of the sites you went to, because 117, because I'm back into a numerology. 369, so Tesla's philosophy, the 7 is a 9. I thought, gosh, interesting, because I'd always had the theory that maybe it was 111, 111 in some of those locations, but I'm really enlightened by that. Fascinating. Can I just jump in with a slightly different question? I'm really curious to know just about your background. You played the cello and the piano.
Yes, and guitar. So I kind of grew up playing in an orchestra, so I was fascinated with resonance. I mean, if you're playing a cello, you are viscerally connected to a resonating instrument, and you feel it, and you feel the sound around you.
So do you have a favorite composer in that idiom, music genre?
Yeah, so my number one, if you just ask me in my kind of like the Tom's top 10, number one is actually Ralph Vaughan Williams' Fantasia on the Theme by Thomas Tallis, because it's an extended orchestra. And if you've ever heard that with the full extended orchestra, I'm getting frisson right now thinking about it.
Yeah.
Literally, my see that it's that much potent harmonic sequence that I've heard. I mean, I'm a massive music lover, and that piece of music smashes it out of the park every time for me.
I quite agree. Yeah, just spot on. You're so right. Funnily enough, I'm in a studio at the moment. We've got a sound we were creating last night that it came up, and I immediately said, "God, it sounds like Vaughan Williams." Look, so I'm in tune with you on that. My final, just this sort of silly question is, where in Cornwall were you brought up?
Truro.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was very obviously a very different experience to being born in London and then
Yeah.
transplanted down to Cornwall, and you've got surfing, skating, rural, coastal fishing, you name it, and yet for some reason around that era there was this whole wave of creativity. There were so many record labels, so many artists, people I'm still connected to, that at that time, late 80s, early 90s, there was this rush of kind of I don't know if it was the post acid jazz funk. James Brown suddenly was brought back out of nowhere, plus synthesizers, and then this sort of utilization of inexpensive electronics to make house music, all that together, and we were just loving all of it, and then records and mixing, and suddenly you've got all these new proto scenes, early rave, early ambient, and this is before we even knew what we were talking about. But actually, it's so interesting that the Being Boiled record is so poignant for myself and Richard, Aphex Twin. I have absolutely clear memories of studying those first two albums, Martin. It's really interesting.
I'm very, very flattered. Thank you.
And do you remember when you talked about Tomita? He actually made then an album of the Planets, Gustav Sol.
Yeah.
Then banned by the daughter, sadly, I believe. But I think I heard it before it was sort of retracted, I believe.
I've got it. It's definitely
Yeah.
I mean, it was a beautiful album. I had the privilege of meeting him a few years before he passed away, and yeah, he actually attended, and he had this giant aerial that he sort of held up, and he was able to kind of bring in the sound of live birds into the experience. Absolutely mind-blowing.
Wow.
The age is like 88 or something. He was still pioneering in a live concert, bringing in bird sound using this sort of giant aerial. Amazing.
And beautiful synth sound, wasn't it? It was really exquisite, the quality of the tone.
Yeah, I would say peerless. I haven't had anyone else that's got close to that kind of the dynamic range, because obviously in classical music you go from pianissimo to fortissimo, and to do that with a synth you've really got to kind of work hard. With acoustic instruments it's more easy, but to actually make synthesizers have that dynamic range is very, very difficult. And I mean, that album is basically, it's Debussy on using Roland and the Saints, and it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I have to say, I think we should talk about. It just occurred to me then we should talk about the difference between Eastern influenced electronic music and kind of things like Wendy Carlos, who was very much embedded in the Western tradition of composition. Because I used to think it, and this relates to synthesizer design as well for me. The reason why I look back on it now, I'm kind of post-rationalizing it, but I look back on why I love Roland gear and Korg gear more than I have any kind of empathy with, even though they sound great, like Moog or the American brands. And I've come to the conclusion, I used to think it was just because the American brands are more designed for traditional musicians. And they kind of like have a, like trucks have a, what do they call it? That thing where you can't go above 60 miles an hour. I think there's something of that within the design of American synthesizers until you get to the big modular things. Of course, you can do anything you want. I'm talking about the kind of one keyboard thing.
Yeah.
Whereas the Roland ones are just bonkers. I think there's a more esoteric appreciation of the range of sounds that are reproducible on Japanese designed instruments. Even to the extent, I'm not a fan of FM synthesis, but when that first came out, it was so obtuse and almost like fucking, I don't know, it was like quantum physics at the time. It's like, I can't relate to it. And I don't want to just go back to the presets all the time. I want to get in and dig around. And it's kind of hard work with FM synthesis. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. It just occurred to me then. All right, is the question from this that I want to ask you is, how have you incorporated the practices of different musical cultures around the world into what you do?
Such a good question. And I think as an observer, I always felt I was a bit of an imposter doing all these gigs, but watching how different pieces of music would affect people emotionally, physiologically, how it makes you move, definitely looking at universals around the world. But you hit on something very interesting then, which is if Japan was so isolated for so long that any Western influence very late, and therefore the mindset and the problem solving. And I've worked as let's say with the R&D team at Pioneer back in the day, and I found it really interesting, those conversations. If you're brainstorming about future products with a team that's Western versus a Japanese team, there's something, it's a different mindset. And if we consider that, Tim, you'll be able to talk about this, shakuhachi music, shamisen music, there's no structure like we have, bars, beats, 4/4, etc. It's about expression, feeling, and flow. So you can't really define that. I mean, and indie music, similarly, there's a different set of sort of ways that you express and how you with tabla playing, etc. But if the Japanese instruments are based on a Japanese mindset, which was absolutely detached from any Western influence for such a long time, that the design of these things is going to be different. And you're absolutely right. US versus Asian instruments, completely different. And I think observing how different cultures respond to music is absolutely crucial to help you make those decisions. So I feel like I've been blessed to go to 58 countries and see how different types of music impacts people. What can I take from that? Then what can I go and research and learn? And then how can I apply that intentionally and functionally? And that's why we have this whole new world of functional music for wellness. Why, utilizing a specific frequency at a particular tempo and a particular set of harmonics variables within that can elicit an effect that's reproducible. Seen it, been there, I know what that is now. And it's time to share that and help people.
Yes.
Biohacking the body with sound.
Like that.
That's the most amazing thing about your personal imprint on this industry, is that you've spanned it all. And not everybody has that. You've actually traversed the universe when it comes to raves and pyramids and sleep apps and bees. And yet it all comes back to one thing: sound as a tool for human reconnection. And whether that be through helping people sleep or just helping people reconnect back to themselves or regulate and harmonize their immune system. But it's backed with your grounded interest and applied science as well, with the music background that makes it relatable to the ravers too. So this is more of what the world needs, I think, is this blending of all of these different mediums that we all share a passion in, to help bring this now to the mainstream front of popular awareness, that actually music is so much more. It can be medicine and brainwave entrainment and binaural beats, like what you were doing with the hanging speakers as a kid. All of your lifetime and layers and eras has arrived at this point where you're helping millions now, and it's so relatable, and the results are in. It works. Sound is medicine.
Yeah, 100%. So we've I say we, Freddie Moros, founder and CEO of Mindstream, has set up the Music for Health and Wellbeing Initiative as part of the Global Wellness Institute. Now, this is a global body that looks at best practices industry-wide to help support different kind of initiatives. This one's all about sound and music, and why it's really interesting, and I'm on the board now, is that we can help craft the lexicon. What is the language that we need to be using? So for what you guys do, what I do, anyone that's sort of, let's say, claiming things, we need to know the right language first to be able to explain them. And then whilst we've defined it, we can also look at, where there are opportunities to support cutting edge research to help explain some of these phenomena that we can't measure at the moment. And then to create industry guidelines and best practices to inform this kind of building of functional intentional music safely. Maybe it's about accreditation and certification, the courses that are going to help people, and whether we can, collaborate with different organizations to kind of lead and let's say right now put a flag in the ground and say, we know SoundPower, right? Sound is powerful, power of sound. Can we be more ethical, responsible, and intentional about its utility to help people? People are suffering, and we know listening to music is a beautiful, simple thing to do. But can we apply a bit of science? Can we look at where there is, let's say, a disconnect between myth, ancient history, and tradition and ritual, and what we're all doing now, which is helping people visibly, viscerally? Can we create a set of best practices? Because I feel that that's where we are right now. And without that, you lead a course on this. You two are experts in this, but there are so many bad actors and charlatans that are kind of going out there and saying, oh, just come to a course and after, 2 days, you're a sound healer. Hold on a minute. How can you claim to heal after 2 days? It's about lived and earned experience to understand how humans are. And then in those different environments and transactions, and you two have done it. Martin, you've done it, but there's so many people out there at the moment that I think they'd love to do it, but they don't know that actually it should be earned.
I think experience. It's that boring kind of best practice thing that is a bit continuing a bit dry to the outside world, but it's really necessary to have some kind of framework, or else it's just the Wild West, isn't it? Everybody can jump on it for money, usually, actually, by the way. One point, really important point I want to make is this: a lot of what we've been talking about here is, for the average person in the street, is probably quite esoteric. But I do believe that the product that we make, all of us, and if we can make it better and more available, appeals to everybody. Not just people who are interested in sound, not just people who would identify as being sound experts or big sound consumers. I think the secret to all this is to actually get it into the mainstream, right in the core of the mainstream. Like it's just an everyday thing. It's not even in question. People are quite happy. I mean, I've got a little Sonos speaker. It sounds fucking amazing. If I feel like it's too quiet in the house, I'll put on some music that I like. But people are used to doing that stuff. Why can't they do it with an intention? That's easy. You already have people listening to sleep apps and all that stuff. But I meant as a part of their everyday existence. I just don't see it's that much of a stretch. And I think a lot of it is in, I hate to say it, but it's in marketing. It has to be marketed properly. And interestingly, you, Tom, are in the same, if it's a Venn diagram, we're in that bit in the middle between commerce and, there's no shame in it. We're trying to make a living out of doing something that's good for the community as well. So that's good.
I think that's what the all industries need is not putting therapeutic sound in the esoteric section and not putting beats and electronics and technology in the music for entertainment section. It is about a unification of all. So having a sound for all, that it can be for everybody, and not just where people feel that sound therapy and spirituality is the word exclusive to. If you're not in that camp, you're not part of it. If you're not into cool music, you're not part of that. Just all of us coming together and unifying to.
Wouldn't it be great if it could be, if stuff like this could be prescribed in a GP practice or in America, or anywhere? It doesn't have to be just here. I think I know what the answer is, by the way, because there's no money in it.
Well, interestingly, there are a number of startups that are looking at this, and big major labels are investing in it. Solos is one app platform that merges binaural beats with catalog music remixed. That seems to be doing very well on Apple Music. There are other, brands and apps and platforms that are looking at ways. Medi Music, Gary Jones's startup that's basically looking at different types of neurodegenerative disorders and how music can be leveraged in a really potent way to create neuroplasticity again, to reconnect people with their minds that they're losing. And this I find very encouraging, that there is investment in it. There's a number of papers and studies. Music Tech or UK is a really interesting platform that unpacks where is money being invested, where are the gaps, and how can we help. And I think it crosses between what we're doing commercially and what's happening from a practitioner standpoint, because once we realize that actually, yes, prescribing this stuff, daily doses of geophony and barphony, thank you very much, I'm happy with that, at particular points, and let's face it, it'll be down to wearables. It'll be the agentic voice in your ear going, yes, Martin, I prescribe some cicadas and some Maldivian gentle shoreline.
Yeah. Also, the idea of adding to the natural soundscape and not just obscuring it. So, just wearable headphones that don't block out outside sound. I don't really believe in this bone conduction stuff, by the way. But anyway, that's another thing. Okay, we're afraid we have to stop. We could go on for a very long time. I think this is a fascinating.
Yeah, we haven't even scratched the surface with you, Tom.
And you basically are at the nexus of everything we've discussed with everyone so far, I think. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, couple of questions. Who's your favorite composer? Oh, you said Vaughan Williams.
Well, I would say that, but I mean, it's difficult because that's from a kind of an emotional response. But I really like Vangelis. I keep coming back to Vangelis. His storytelling through music, and his he embraced every instrument and then created the biggest kind of like synth suite of things that he could then perform as the composer of all of these sounds in one move. I mean, I don't know anyone else that's ever done that. I mean, if you've seen him performing a soundtrack with this one keyboard and then kind of reaching around and hitting a gong, and then it's phenomenal to watch. I'm just buzzing thinking about it. Yeah, props to Mr. Vangelis.
Fair enough. And you kind of addressed this, but what's your best hope for the future, would you say, in this field?
Well, I think if we can crack the definitions in lexicon, educate, inspire, and then create these sort of best practices where it's more ethical, more socially responsible, that we're not, let's deploy the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm, and that includes sound. Tim Cherub, I have a video of an experience where there's a guy sitting on the floor rocking in pain as this gong boss is doing this. Clearly, I don't know what course he went on.
Urban Tim, don't do that. It's all right.
Exactly. It's intentional. It's being able to utilize and learn how to use the instruments, the technology in the way that does no harm, and to meet people where they are. I think if we can, crack understanding a little bit more about, mental health and emotional well-being before we actually deploy these things, we're probably in a better place to be more functional.
And
Well said.
Yeah, well said. One final question.
Just before you give the final question, just to jack on what you said there is a bit controversial, but Tim calls those type of sound players, who are a few different phrases, the pot noodle people, the overnight gong masters who play the gong like shutting a barn door. And one of my favorite lines he said is, oh yes, the sound healers in the sea of mediocrity.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like Tim. Okay. One thing that fascinates me, I think we discussed this offline, is the use of sound in urban design in the open air, like for installations outdoors, and making the experience, because I'm an enormous fan of communal joy, and I fear that a lot of the kind of therapeutic things that we've been talking about today, and I'm as guilty as everyone else, a lot of it is delivered via means that actually isolate you from your fellow person or nature or whatever it is. So I'm going to rope you into we need to start pitching for some very large scale urban amelioration, sonic amelioration projects.
Definitely. With sounds that are
It'll make such a difference.
Yeah.
I've seen it work.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, one lovely use case is the Tokyo Underground system. If you've been to Tokyo, you'll know that each station has its own theme tune, so that if you're blind, you can navigate the entire metro network with sound and music. That's the theme tune of that line. That's the theme tune jingle of that station. I love this idea that you could sonify and then be a participant in that. So in the world as a sound architect,
It makes the world a more fun place, apart from that.
exactly, bring joy with sound, where you walk past a space and look at those railings. Oh, did you hear that? Well, you're perhaps just by moving your hands or touching something, it creates a melody that's tuned to a scale that's positive and joyful. And so we have music wherever we go.
Can I just need to tell you about a project that I'm currently developing with another artist about bringing urban statues to life with sound.
That's awesome.
It's a simple idea, proximity sensors, having voiceover actors and maybe composition as well, bringing history to life with these totemic objects that are in every city centre.
Brilliant.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, we could go on one level higher, which is using the there's a guy that's working on some projects that basically bring endangered species or various different objects to life, as in you can speak to them. There's one guy that's done it with a tree. You can literally go and have a conversation with a tree. So it's AI voice sonification of an object. Now, wouldn't that be lovely if you just go and speak to a...
Absolutely.
Speak to my trees every day in the garden, hug them. They speak to me directly.
They really? Okay, tell me about that, Cheryl. Come on.
You hug them, you give them energy. That's the key. Never ask to get energy from them. You give them energy, and it opens up a channel between you both, and you can feel pulsing movement, subtle energy, waveforms between you both. And you can ask the question telepathically, and the answer will drop in. You just got to clear the channel, tune in, and believe.
Okay, this sounds like bollocks to me, but anyway.
Come to my garden and try it for yourself. Take some mesmeramine first.
I'm just being good. But I would like to try and measure it. If there was such a thing. I mean, we can place electrodes in the tree and we can see if it changes. If it changes when you I know the capacitance will change. There's my friend Joey, who I'm going to be interviewing, friend of Ruth Daniel.
UFO Joey, Natural Symphony one.
Natural Symphony, yeah, but he does this stuff all the time. You can change. You can tell the change in the the flowing state of whatever it is, the sap or whatever, the liquids inside the tree and all that stuff. Wouldn't that be interesting to see if we could actually make it change and respond in some way to tree hugging?
Joey actually told us a beautiful story at Luna Baker's Christmas party last year. Obviously, I said earlier, my fiance is a tree surgeon. Joey told Oliver a story that changed his life forever, where there was a shaman in the jungle that spoke about he was about to cut a tree down and he had to ask the tree's permission first. And the tree actually communicated with him and accepted that it had to be cut down. But apparently there was a discourse that went on between them that suggested obviously trees don't want to be cut down. And it really changed Oliver's perspective on how he communicates with the trees when he's at work. So we'll speak to him about...
Hold on a second. Whoa, how does he communicate with the trees?
You'll have to ask Joe.
The way he lives.
I had a few tequilas at the time, so I can't remember the full story, but we'll get the full details of him on the podcast.
I would imagine there might be some plant medicine involved. Now, stepping out through the matrix.
Yeah, maybe it's the mushrooms, I'm suspecting. Okay, on that bombshell, we shall leave it for today. Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we need...
Hang on, what about asking Tom what his favourite natural sound is?
Oh yeah, I forgot that one. Yes,
That's a great
what's your favourite natural sound?
So, I think it's water, because I'm a Leo fire sign, and I feel much happier when I've got the sound of water in various kind of elemental forms, whether it's rain, whether it's gentle waves lapping on the shore, or even at the distance, North Atlantic rollers. It's water element for me.
I think it's the most common response. It's much what I feel as well.
Oh, do you know? Here's a little insight. So, waves, as in actual waves, typically will have a frequency of around 6 cycles a minute. Now, guess how many breaths you have when you're in deep sleep? Oh, you have 6 breaths a minute. That's why you like listening to the flow of waves, is because it actually entrains you down into the same frequency as you're breathing. Ta-da!
The natural cycles of Earth.
Where I used to live in Venice, it was on the Jedi Canal, which is 300 meters wide, and it's very deep. It's because it used to allow super tankers to go around there, so they dredged it to like 60 feet or something. They've stopped it now, obviously. So consequently, it's not like a normal canal. It's kind of very wavy, and but the interesting thing is, it makes no sound at all, nothing, because you can't hear it splashing against the side. It's very, very active visually, especially at night. It looks like black oil, just undulating and stuff, but you can't hear anything. There's no breaking waves, in other words. I just thought I mentioned that. It's nothing to do with sound.
Yeah.
It's to do with the absence of sound. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much, Tom. So we need to continue this conversation offline about how we can work together, I think.
Love to. And I think, just as a parting shot, one, I'd like to say thank you all for providing a platform that is so necessary right now, with everyone, if I'm going to, pivot, and I'm going to make, sleep music, or I'm going to become a practitioner, and I'm going to, stroke bowls for a living. Okay. But, go to the experts, learn those that actually know how to do it, and let's do this properly.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Love that. Thank you.
Oh, it's fantastic. You.
Tom Middleton, the supersonic wizard.
Oh, I know someone who said that the other day.